And we're live. We're streaming to you live from Founders Park in historic Ocean Grove, New Jersey today. And we're delighted that you could join us for a unique podcast community where we explore the challenges and triumphs of the musical world as seen through the eyes of distinguished artists. Thank you for helping our platform grow. We recently hit 1,461 subscribers on YouTube. Please remember to subscribe to us and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on our upcoming guests and topics. And we feature guests and topics from a wide variety of genres and musical styles and artists that go from classical to indie artists and everything in between. We're delighted that you could join us today. To see our almost 170 past episodes, check out our website, our vault at www.jasontram.net. Again, www.jasontram.net. We have a fantastic guest today. We have an indie singer-songwriter from Los Angeles. We have Natalie Duque, she's released 3 in a full EPs and has been recording for many years. And she's doing beautiful work, and I look forward to discussing with her today. Welcome, Natalie.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It's a blast. So tell us about what you're working on right now.
So I just released a 2-song mini EP this past week. So right now I'm in the thick of that.
That's exciting.
Just working on promoting it. And actually next week I am shooting a music video for one of the songs. So really excited about that. So yeah.
I call this the era of the indie artist because people are tired of like the plastic image that the record companies have sold us for many, many years, and they really want to get to know the artist behind the person behind the art, right? I feel that the indie audiences really want to get to know the people who write the songs. They want to get a sense of who they are, what they believe. I think it's so important. And these days with social media, you almost have a direct connection with your audience. What's that like?
Yeah, at first it was really hard for me because I'm kind of a private person. And so it was a little uncomfortable. And I worked with a company for a couple of months, and I think working with them helped me to just feel more comfortable and getting out of my shell and posting as frequently as I should be, but posting things that felt authentic to me. And so it's kind of like trying to show people a little bit more, the behind the scenes and who I am as a person, but in a way that felt comfortable and felt right for me. So it's definitely been a growing curve and a process for me to figure out that balance. But now, like I said, I definitely feel a lot more comfortable. And it's fun. It's fun to engage with people and,
we always have this conversation that what if some of the great artists of the past had social media accounts like, Jimmy Page or Jimi Hendrix or Joan Baez. I mean, what if we knew all there's a certain mystique about that's been kind of lost, but I think it's been replaced by this authenticity and kind of, it must be really hard to strike that balance.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that's my toddler.
That's okay. That's part of the balance, right?
Well, and that's part of the balance too, where I'm like, I don't want to overshare too much, post him too much. But I ask people and they're like, we actually really enjoy seeing how you balance motherhood and being a musician.
A lot of lessons to learn there for a lot of people that we all need. That it's hard. I'm a dad, so I know that how hard it is to balance all those commitments and still be a creative artist and in the place and the zone to create.
Yeah, and still find the time. But yeah, you bring up an interesting point. I've thought of that before, especially when I was having a hard time posting more about myself. I'm like, I know Cher was super shy. She did not like to perform and go on stage. What would have happened? What would have happened if there was Instagram and she had to share about her life? Would she have done it? But
some don't, and that's kind of fascinating to me. And then some, I think it's really, it's a direct conduit to the audience, and I think it's really been an exciting thing. What's it like with having, your songs? You just put out an EP. How long did it take to write them? How long did it take to produce them in the studio? What's the full cycle of a production like that?
So the writing of the song, that really all depends. A song can take a day or it can take 3 years. It's just, it really depends on the song. But typically...
How about these two? How about these two?
So these two, So one of them was co-written. So that one was written in a day. We did it in a 3-hour Zoom session. It was a COVID song,
Amazing.
baby. Yeah. The other
Give us a shout out. Who'd you write it with?
I wrote it with, so their band is called Only Bricks. It's Ann and Joseph. They are a married couple. So I always tell them, like, those couple goals, because they live together and write together and a band together. They're amazing.
Very convenient.
Yeah, they're incredible. But they are a pop duo, and we got together to write this song, and at the end I was like, I'm obsessed. I have to release this one. This is such a fun one. So yeah, the song, I write the song, and then what I usually do, what I have learned over the years, is to get feedback, because a song really is just in its first draft. When you think, when you're like, okay, I'm done writing it. But it's really helpful to get feedback from other songwriters. And I go to a weekly song club, virtual song club. And so it's a bunch of artists and songwriters. We meet on Zoom, we break out into little groups, we each share a song, and we get feedback from the other members. And I've really, again, it's been something that developed through COVID. And
are folks all over the country, that type of thing?
Yeah, so the organization is the Los Angeles Songwriters Collective. So they're based in Los Angeles, but because of COVID and everything going virtually, we've gotten now more like East Coast members who have joined us, which is really cool. So yeah, I bring the songs there to get feedback, and then I rework it, and then I'll perform songs like on my live streams, this past year, and to see kind of like the receptiveness of them, and then from there I decide which songs I'm gonna record. So with the song that I co-wrote, I kind of knew right away. I'm like, this song is special. I want to record this one.
It had legs, right? That's the one.
Yeah, and then I played it at a few live streams, and people were really excited about it. So that kind of just like reaffirmed, like, yes, I need to record this one. And yeah.
How important is the performing of a new song? How important is that in your process, like either live or Zoom, and to get some audience feedback? Is that important to you?
It's gotten a lot more important. So I used to just write the song, not get feedback, record it based on like what's my favorite song, and then that's it. So my process has definitely evolved over the years. It is important because it's so hard. Like one day I'll love a song, and the next day I'm like, oh, this is garbage. Like that's just how songwriters are. Like, it changes all the time. And I write music to connect with people. So I want to be, I write a ton of songs, and I want to be releasing the ones that people really connect with and want to hear on a regular basis. So it is important for me to get that feedback to see what people are drawn to.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so important to kind of like, as a conductor, I always I can kind of sense the energy of the audience, and I can feel it like when they're into it, and it's my job to make it, every piece interesting and to make it come alive. And it's so important that the audience gives us that emotion. That's why we do this, right?
Yeah. So, and sometimes songs just need to be released because for personal reasons, like on the EP that I released a few years ago now, called Brave is Beautiful. But one of the songs on that EP, I needed to release it for me. Like I needed it to be out into the world. Like, so that one, it wasn't important for me that people listened, that people liked it. For me, it was this, like, it just meant so much to me, on an emotional level, that I was like, I have to like get this, out there.
What was the topic, if I may ask?
So yeah, it was, so my husband and I had a hard time getting pregnant. And so we had to do the IVF process, and going through that process of like not being sure if I was going to be able to get pregnant, even with all of the treatments and everything, it was really hard. And so Music is my therapy, and that's
What better way to share that with the world? And that's this is a challenge for a lot of people, and to share that probably brings a lot of people joy,
yeah. So
consolation, and healing. Yeah.
yeah, and when I released it at the time, again, we didn't know what was going to happen, but I was like, this was like a song to my unborn child that I wasn't sure was even going to be born, but like I had to have the song out there. So for that, like that was important for me.
And having the little one there now, that must be. I always say that music. I tell my students, I teach a survey course in Western music, and for non-majors, anyone. Then most of the students have never been to a live performance before, if only maybe rap or. And I say, music's like an amber that captures everything that's going around it in time. It kind of crystallizes it. Whether you go back to Beethoven or whether you take a singer-songwriter, so that song forever is going to be that kind of like that emotion. And I love how singer-songwriters capture that emotion. And I'm always interested, and thank you for sharing that. It's such a personal story. That's what we're talking about, the personal connection with people.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
And what's it like to release that into the world and then to get your feedback? Because I know you're on all the streaming platforms. People probably hear your music from all over and comment. And what's it like getting comments from people that it touches them?
It really, it's validating. Like, I know, like, we should, as musicians, like, our music, we shouldn't need outside validation, but it feels good. And it's nice to hear that and to just know that, like, okay, I am like, I don't want to say doing my job, but if I want to be connecting with people and people reach out and it's something that resonates with them, I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right. Like this is why I'm doing this. So, I released a song. My last single that I released is called Imposter. And it's about my battle with imposter syndrome. And it's one of those songs where when I wrote it, I wasn't intending on releasing it. For me, I just thought like, oh, this is just like one of my songs that I use for processing stuff. And I played it at a few live streams, and I played it live. And that is the song that resonated with people. And when they would like come up to me afterwards and like, I really relate to those lyrics. And I was like, okay, if that's so many people are resonating with this, then this needs to be a song that I release. So that's how I decided on releasing that song, because I felt like, it was a sign that it just needed to be out into the world. So
the universe is directing it, right? It's kind of saying this has got to happen, and you kind of have to follow that pathway.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The universe was like, this one. I was like, okay, we're doing it.
It goes. Yeah, I think music has that ability to unite and inspire, and it's the artist's job to provide that. And it's very. I know when I hear someone come forward and say something like that, it really is touching, and that's why we do it. It's like, oh yeah, that's the that core, and it's interesting how like you as the artist, you may be going through something, when someone else hears it, they kind of can connect across cultural lines. Music can cross political divides. I mean, that's what music's so special. It makes the art so important to all of us.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
That's a tricky question. I've always loved singing and songwriting. I've always struggled with figuring out my place in the music world, because like I mentioned before, I'm a little more private. And as far as like live performances, like I see some artists on stage and they live for being on stage. Like you just,
natural extroverts, right?
They're lost in it, and you're lost in it, and you're like, yes, and that's not me. I'm more of I'm an introvert. I write and I do perform, but like the stage is not necessarily where I feel alive. Where I feel alive is like, figuring out how to put into words something that I'm feeling or experiencing. And it's, and it's a challenge to communicate or talk about. And like, somehow I'm able to put it into a song. Like for me, the songwriting, like that's the magic. So yeah. So it was really hard, because I'm like, you look at like the stereotypical artist and you're like, okay, well, I don't look like that. Doesn't that mean that I don't belong? So it took me a really long time to feel more comfortable in the role as the artist, and to try and like break out of my shell. But like I mentioned to
So
you,
what helped you to break those barriers? Because obviously you've broken them. You perform regularly. You've released all these albums. You do tons of work. You've been in the business a long time. How did you break those boundaries?
I think a lot of just trying to acknowledge the negative voices in my head, but also move past them, and just doing things more. And I realized, like, you have to be bad at something before you're good at it.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So just continuing to try to put myself out there. And the more I do something, the more comfortable I am with it. So the more I started performing, the more comfortable I got with performing, the more I was writing and collaborating with people, and, putting myself out there and sharing in these song shares. Like, I remember my first like song share that I did, I was so nervous. I was like nauseous. And it was not even a live performance on a stage. It was like in a group of, 10 people, of other artists, who was a very supportive community. But I was like, oh my God, these people, they're going to judge me. They're going to think that I suck. They're going to whatever. And now, like, I show up every week and I'm like, I kind of just, whip this out. This is like a half thought out song, but here's what I have so far. So yeah, it's just pushing through the negative voices and consistently putting myself out there no matter how uncomfortable. And then gradually over time, I've gotten more comfortable.
And you grow, right? We all grow that way. I remember the first time I got in front of an orchestra, I was petrified. I was in Europe. I was in Romania, and I was a 22 or 3-year-old kid, get up there in front of these professional musicians and like, and I was terrible, first time doing anything. It's not, I mean, people watch movies and they say the first time, like, oh, that's very rare. And it takes years to get your sea legs and get comfortable in any field like that. And eventually you find your voice. And I'm always amazed because I really enjoy your voice. I enjoy your emotion in your songs. And that's really something special. So I'm glad you powered through and you ignored those negative voices. What advice do you have for young people who are starting that journey and have those doubts as well?
Well, thank you so much. I'll just say to try to not, I think what happens is we compare ourselves to other people. And that's the thing that makes us like, oh, well, that's not me. So I can't do that. And
we all have done that, right?
Yeah. Well, and especially with social media, we're all comparing ourselves to people's, their highlights, right? The best moments of their lives.
More like their fake lights. It's like some highlights, but mostly like, staged and, and amplified and filtered and, that type of thing.
And we're not seeing all of the failures and all of the things that they are going through to get to that point. Even celebrities, and so I remind myself, like, it's not that they're like so much more talented than me and I'm not as talented and I can't get there. They've heard no a lot more times. And so I try to remind myself that when I do get a rejection, it's like, okay, you know what? It sucks to get rejected, but this is a good thing because that means I'm one step closer to, reaching my goals or, succeeding in whatever way that I'm trying to succeed. So I'm trying to trying to shift my perspective. So yeah, I would say get out there, just keep doing it, keep doing your best, and you will grow. You will get better over time. You just have to keep doing it because we're all bad at whatever we first try to do something, right? Like, especially like seeing my son, when he was trying to learn how to crawl, he was flailing all over the place. When he was trying to learn how to walk, he fell a million times before he was able. Now he's running all over the place, and I can't even keep up with him.
They never stop.
Yeah.
My oldest is 21, and I have a 16-year-old and 18-year-old. I get it. They are once they start, they never stop.
Yeah.
So. Now, you're a trained classical musician. You trained classically. Tell us about that, and how does that help you as a singer-songwriter in what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I started taking classical lessons in the 3rd grade, And I continued with it through high school. I went to the Performing Arts High School in New York City, LaGuardia.
We've had a lot of LaGuardia graduates on the show, and I love that school. I was asked to do an orchestra workshop. I did Brahms 4 with their orchestra, and I had such a pleasure with those students. And, whenever I'm in New York, I'm a classical guy, and this is the center of the world in classical music, right? I'm sitting outside the Met on my phone, just kind of dealing with something, who knows what, something with the college I work at. And one of the students walked up to me and goes, "You were awesome, man." I'm like, "Oh my God, someone recognized me in New York. That was so cool." And the kids, they really had a good time. I made them laugh. I like to have a good time when I'm doing music, even serious music.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, I'm so incredibly grateful for that high school experience, especially because music was just something that was so ingrained in me and that I loved. I didn't really enjoy school. Music was the thing that I was good at and I loved doing. And so to be able to, you have to major in, when you go to LaGuardia, you have to major in what you have to audition to get in and then major in one of these fields. And so I was a vocal performance major. And so half of my day was singing theater, music.
What could be better than that?
It's it was really long days because then you had to still go to math and science and history and all that stuff, but it was totally worth it. It was worth the commute. It was worth everything. And it was an incredibly humbling experience because, you think you're good and then you go there and you're like, oh, okay. These are like crazy talented.
You see your horizons expand. My son's a 16-year-old drummer, and he's pretty serious about it. He's going to Berkeley this summer, and I'm like, wait till you hear some of the other drummers. You're going to be like, oh.
Congrats.
But it's great stuff. It's just, you always want to be in that culture, that kind of that environment, that the cultural rich environment. Really, you always learn. I still learn. My favorite thing is when I work with orchestras, just to look around me and meet people and to talk about their different experiences, and it just makes the music so much richer.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it. And by the way, I think my son might be a future drummer too. So I might be hitting you up.
Watch out. Soundproof his room.
He has the rock star hair already. It's really curly, crazy hair and loves to just get into music. But anyway, so yeah, I, again, was still classically trained and then studied voice in college. And so it just really gave me this strong foundation in music. And I think that helped me. It just helped me when I then ventured off. It was funny, in college, and then I kind of also discovered jazz, and I sang a jazz ensemble, and I was like, wait a minute. I remember walking into this jazz ensemble rehearsal one day, and they're like, okay, so we're just going to scat over these chords or whatever. I'm like, scat? No. I'm classically trained. We read what's on the page. We don't do our own thing. But that helped me to kind of feel more comfortable venturing out, I think. And then yeah, from there, then just kind of started exploring the singer-songwriter route. But I definitely think it just made me a stronger musician, a stronger artist.
So having all that background, which is just so incredibly helpful as an artist, you have so many more possibilities when you have those backgrounds, right? So who are some of some of the singer-songwriter innovators who have influenced you on your journey?
I am heavily influenced by 90s female singer-songwriters. So Jewel, Sheryl Crow, Alanis Morissette, just all those 90s. Lilith Fair. That was really, it's interesting. I listened to it, and I didn't realize how much I was influenced by it until I started sharing my music out. I went to a music conference a few years ago and shared some of my songs with a manager who was there. And she was like, that was the first thing she said. She was like, if you came out during that time, I could see you headlining Lilith Fair, which totally the 13-year-old in me just exploded and was like, oh my God, why was I not born at a different time? yeah, I didn't realize how much it influenced my songwriting until I started getting feedback from people, that they could hear those influences. Like it was just like in me, you know?
Yeah, you absorb that by osmosis, and then you can't help where you come from. It's a part of you. Like we, even though you're unique and you're individual and you have your own creative thoughts, it's like I think it's always there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the first Beethoven album I listened to when I started getting into classical music. It's just like probably is somewhere in the back of my mind, and like that kind of prints on you somewhere, and you kind of. I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah, well, they say you are what you listen to, right? So I totally agree with that now. Because I'm like, oh yeah.
What do you listen to these days? What's on your iPod when you're going to the gym or walking around the town?
I listen to, so even back then I listened to so many different things. Like I grew up in New York City. We like R&B was big. There was, the like indie punk rock kind of whatever. So like I really did listen to everything growing up. I actually didn't discover country music until college. And I like really enjoyed it. And my family's like, you're from New York City. What's wrong? We don't listen to country music. I'm like, no, it's really good. And I fell in love with the storytelling in country music. And so that definitely has influenced my songwriting as well, as I've, some more recent in the last 5-7 years, some recent influences like Miranda Lambert. I love her songwriting.
The whole Nashville scene. I've had a few of the Nashville singer-songwriters on. So interesting. They have such a vibrant singer-songwriter kind of community down there. They have a similar thing to the LA group. They get together and they say they have a lot of these where people just get there and test out their rep in front of groups. And I think it's such a helpful way to process your work.
Yeah. I love the storytelling in country music. It's inspiring. So yeah, what do I listen to? I listen to so many different things that I can't even say, but I do listen to pop music as well. Like, not, I'm gonna say pop, but like JP Saxe, who actually, he's a Canadian artist, but I saw him play at Hotel Cafe here in Los Angeles a few years ago, right before he got signed. And now like he just released his first like major label album. So it's been really cool to watch his, his
skyrocketing, right?
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I listen to country, Americana. I do listen to throwbacks because I just love.
Me too.
I love my throwbacks so much. So it's just a whole like smorgasbord of things.
We have a question. This is from Samantha in Long Beach, in your neck of the woods, not too far. She asks, so what is her? Oh, here it is. Okay. She asks, what was your first song you wrote that you remember, and what was the topic?
It's so funny. I'm cleaning out my office because I'm like switching spaces, and I've like kept all of my journals.
Wow.
And I was just going through some of my like first songs, and they're all really terrible, of course, because we all suck when we first start writing. But I'm like, why was I was so obsessed with like heartbreak, and I don't even think I knew what it was. But yeah.
Universal human themes, right? Like it's the same in classical music, it's the same in pop music, and it's really what makes music so enduring is the universal human themes. So even before you realized and you were old enough to process it, it's there, right?
Yeah. So I wrote a lot about heartache. And then like the first song really that I put out there was actually a song that I wrote with my sister. She
Wow.
She was writing poems, and she sent them to me, and she was like, can you put this to music? And of course it was a heartache song, so I was like, yeah, I could do this. So that was the first like song that I can remember where it was like I'm playing guitar, like I can sing it and play the chords. But I was writing songs for years before that about heartbreak.
Have any of those songs made it on your EPs, or are they in your personal vault?
No, those are my personal vaults. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about your process for writing. Does the text come first? Does the music come first? Is it a hybrid? How do you approach the songwriting?
Yeah, it all depends. So it can start it can start with, I have this really cool idea for a theme or a song idea, or I'm practicing guitar, playing the guitar, and I come up with a cool chord progression that inspires me. I'm like, I want to write to this. So it depends. Like one of the songs that I just released on this mini EP, it actually started with like I had just a melody line, and then like an idea for the story, and then I brought it to my collaborators and we turned that into a song. Most often though, I will because melody is my strength and the lyrics are just take a little bit longer for me. Like I have friends who they just whip out these amazing lines that already rhyme and everything. I'm like, how'd you just do that? Like, that's not how my brain works. So typically I will journal first and I'll write and it also helps me to solidify, like, what am I actually trying to say? Like, what do I actually want to say in this song? Because a lot of times it's not what I originally thought.
Isn't that interesting how art kind of transforms and morphs in different directions? I always love talking about the process in the studio, how when you take your original material and you bring it to the studio and a producer joins in the process, how it changes completely. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that process. You've worked with some really distinguished producers. Give us the, shout out some names and tell us about that process.
Yeah, well, so the production process is actually the hardest for me. I'm trying to learn. We talked about this before coming on air, where I'm not really a tech person, and so I'm trying to push myself outside my comfort zone and really learn the process, because I think it's going to help me moving forward and continuing to, like, you know, communicate and hear things when it comes to production. But production is hard for me. So what I usually do is I find a producer that I want to work with, and we'll chat and just make sure like we're on the same page about the project. And then I create a Spotify playlist of like, this is what I want it to sound like. Since it's hard for me to like communicate, you know, the drums and the this and the that, it's like easy to like give an example of what I, you know, of what I want the song to sound like. And then typically then I go in the studio and we kind of like, we'll work through it together. Sometimes, you know, we might make minor tweaks here and there on the like the structure, little tiny things with the song. But I mean, the songs are finished going in there. And yeah, and then we're like, well, let's try it out with this past mini EP that I recorded with Justin Glasgow. I was like, you know, I was thinking maybe trying this one on electric guitar, and it's like, oh yeah, I really like that. And kind of just going from there.
That's got to be interesting to watch it change. And when you finally gets in, all the editing is done, how long does it take? Has it taken you in past projects? Has it gotten quicker? Does it take more time now? I mean, how's that process? Since you've been in the studio for a long time now, how have you advanced as a studio musician?
So I think, well, first, I'm kind of like a little bit of a type A personality. So I like to show up like prepared and, make sure.
Time is money. I'm a conductor. I totally know.
Yeah. It's so funny. I've always gotten comments like, wow, you really came prepared. Like I have my lyric sheets printed out and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, is that not what everybody does? Is this not normal?
Did you ever hear the Rolling Stones? What they did when they first came in, they were just like, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard they would like smoke pot until something would come to them. And like 10 hours later, they would start putting stuff down there. And maybe a couple days later, and I heard the Eagles came along and the same people like, no way we're doing that. You have to be a professional.
Yeah. Well, you know what? But that's some people's creative process, and they're complete geniuses, and they're able to do that. Me, I'm like, no, I can't. Yeah. I can't work under pressure like that. Like, I need to make sure that like this is like
you are ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
Space to be successful.
Yeah, I have a clear understanding. So I send the producers a demo beforehand. So this is the guitar and the vocals. This BPM feels good to me, but let's talk it through. Like if you hear something different. And yeah, like I said, we'll tweak little things here and there, but for the most part, like I'm going in like this is the finished product, and we're just kind of going. Also, especially now, this last mini EP I recorded, it was still during quarantine, so we were both trying to like minimize the amount of time that we're together. We wore our masks and all that, but just trying to be as careful and mindful as process. And I'm home with a toddler. So I'm like, I can't be gone for that long. Like I gotta get in and get out.
Real deadlines, real challenges.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, just trying to be as prepared as possible and trying to do as much work that we can outside of the studio so that the time in the studio can be the most efficient.
That is great advice to anyone listening who is any musician. We have a lot of young people listen who are younger, who are coming up in the business. Any music, for classical, indie singer song, you name it. This will be a good formula for success.
Yeah.
Be prepared, know your music, be ready to go, have opinions.
Yeah.
So tell us about the COVID period. This has been such a dark period for all artists, but we've all had to find the silver linings, whether they be personal or professional. How have you dealt with that? I mean, for me, it was everything was canceled. I saw gigs I spent years preparing for and setting up and just falling by the wayside. How did you deal with the initial challenges we all faced, and what is something you've learned about yourself in the process?
So initially, I just threw myself into music, into like songwriting, because I knew that there was just so much that was uncertain, and I didn't want my mind to wander to crazy dark places. And it was already like so scary and uncertain, and there was like not much in our control. And I was like, okay, well, what can I control? I can write. And normally I like to write sad songs. And I just remember I was collaborating, I was doing my co-writes during my son's naps. Luckily in the beginning of quarantine, he was still taking 2 naps a day. So I would like co-write during the first nap and then like do whatever I had to do during his second nap.
That is some hardcore planning you've done there. That's amazing.
Well, that ended quickly. I think he was like, you guys have too much time. I'm going to drop my second nap like after like a month or something.
Please inform your agent the second nap has been canceled.
Yeah, this is going to end. But so, yeah, so when I was writing with my collaborators, we agreed, like, let's write more like positive, upbeat stuff. Like, let's put positive energy out into the universe. I think other people need it and we need it, like I definitely needed it. And so I tried to just focus on that for a while. And so my first single that I released during COVID is called Rise. And it was about, how like these are hard times, but somehow we're going to get through it together. And then I released this collaborative EP in December with Ramita Aurora, and it's called Letters to Our Loved Ones. And it was all the songs that we wrote, not all of them, but some of the songs we wrote during COVID, just about like friendship and love. And, we were just like positive energy. Let's get it out there. We need more of it.
Certainly do.
Yeah. So that's what I did, because I was like, that's what I can control. I still was freaking out and, especially with the kid at home and what does it mean for him and all of that. But I tried to just be as positive as I possibly could. But at the same time, I actually did have a lot of musical silver linings, because as I mentioned, I'm more of an introvert, and it's hard for me to go to events and network and meet people. It's like when there's these big crowds, it's overwhelming for me. And because of COVID and because everybody was forced online, it like forced us all into these like smaller communities where it felt easier to connect with people. I was like, okay, whereas I used to do this monthly song club and it would be like 10 people in a room and there wasn't really time to chat or like really connect with people. Now we're doing it weekly and we break out into small groups, and I felt like it allowed me more of this contact with people. And especially, again, being having a toddler, it's harder to get out to events. I have to drive downtown and all that. And it's like now I'm able to do these events from home when he's sleeping, and I don't.
That's actually an advantage there. There's definitely a silver lining.
Yeah. So there were definitely a lot of negative things, but there were silver linings for me as well, and I just tried really hard to focus on that.
I know for me, I have family, and being able to spend more time with my family was really kind of like a great silver lining. And surprising, I'm like, I haven't been home this long ever. Like 2 weeks later, I'm like, I don't think I've ever been in the same place for 2 weeks without all the rehearsals, and everything just goes online. It's just amazing how the technology shifted everything. Did you do a lot of streaming performances?
So I did. When we weren't sure how long this was going to last, and we thought it was going to kind of be
a couple weeks, a month, maybe. We were like, oh, it's kind of like a vacation. Cool. Then it's like a year later.
So at first I was like, oh, I'm going to do weekly live streams while this happens, while this is going on. People need entertainment. Everybody's home and bored. And 3 months later, I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. I just
love schedule every week.
Yeah, I loved connecting with people. But yeah, I was spending a lot of time rehearsing for these live streams. I really put a lot of thought into it. Like every week was a theme, and and it was fun, but it was a lot, especially when I had a limited schedule because I didn't have childcare anymore, and I had to worry about my toddler. So I switched to monthly live streams, and I'm still doing monthly live streams now.
That's good. Is that something when you return to live performance, are you going to keep doing? So you engage with people who can't come see you live? Is that something that you think you're going to keep in the portfolio?
Yeah, at first I was like, I wanted to do it anyway because I've connected with fans from all over, so they wouldn't be able to come to my LA live shows anyway. And I also recently launched a Patreon page, and so that's one of the tiers is my monthly live streams. So it's definitely something that is going to stick around.
Now, there was a rumor that you might play a song for us today.
Yes, I am going. So I'm going to play the song "Imposter." That I was like, what do I play? Because I just released this EP, but I'm going to play "Imposter," the song that I wrote about. Let me get a sip of tea first.
Absolutely, got to make sure you're well hydrated. I got my coffee here as well.
Yeah. So this is a song I wrote about my battle with imposter syndrome, and I wrote it. I had taken a few years off from music, and it was really hard. I was like, okay, I can't not do music. It was, I knew it, but that solidified it. And when I got back into music, I was like, I knew in my bones, this is what I was born to be doing. And at the same time, mentally, I still struggled with, do I belong? And so that's where this came from. What if I can't do this? What if they all find out I'm really not that tough? What if all those times I was just plain lucky? What if I never was who I thought I was? Would I always be wondering about a life that could have been? There's an imposter. There's an imposter moving things around in my head. There's an imposter. Not wanting to be seen, but wanting to be heard. Can't decide which I want more. Should I run and hide? Should I stay and fight? What if I lose this tug of war? Would I always be wondering about a life that could have been? There's an imposter. There's an imposter moving things around. She's not me and I'm not her, although the lines are sometimes blurred. In my bones I know the truth, this house does not have room for two. There's an imposter, there's an imposter, moving things around in my head. There's an imposter, there's an imposter. I keep fighting to figure out what's mine, which parts are the which parts are the lie.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thanks.
Such a powerful song, and getting to meet you and then hearing the song makes it even more rewarding. And where can people go to find out more about you, your performances, both virtual and live? And where do you send people on social media that find you as well?
Yeah, I'm in all the places, but my website, I guess, is a central hub because there's a link to everything.
Perfect.
So NatalieDuque.com, Duque. I know it's a weird last name. And I'm mostly, like, the social media platform that I use the most is Instagram. So it's Natalie Duque Music. I'm also on Facebook, Natalie Duque Music, Twitter, TikTok. Although I'm not on there that often, but I am on there. So I would say, like, my website and Instagram is where you get the most information. And you can stream
hear her music on YouTube and all the streaming sites as well. So I encourage you all, check it out and really engage into some really deep and profound music that's very personal. And thank you for sharing all that with us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for watching Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topic. Our next show will be this coming Sunday at 8 o'clock p.m. We're going to be looking at the 67th. We're going to be talking about the 67th annual Ocean Grove Choir Festival, and we'll actually be on the stage of the historic Great Auditorium and shoot the show from there. So hope you can join us, and thank you so much. Keep music alive.